the Ford government is preparing to implement new measures it says are aimed at strengthening Ontario's bail system. The province says it'll make legislative changes to improve and increase the collection of forfeited bail money. It also intends to create permanent teams of prosecutors who will handle bail hearings involving serious and violent crimes. The government says it'll launch a review of the bail system as well to make it more effective. The Premier is calling the current system broken and put much of the blame on the backs of judges today.
You could go in and kick in a door, put a gun to someone's head with kids in the house, terrorize that house, and guess what? By the time they get arrested and get out, it's the next day. And then they start mocking our police in the back of the police car. Don't worry, I'll be out by the time you start your shift. And what happens? They're out before they get, before they come back on duty. The system is broken, and there's a lot of terrible, terrible bleeding heart judges out there.
And opposition leaders condemned Premier Ford's comments, and they're pushing back against the idea of an Americanization of the judiciary.
Premier's attempt to politicize our courts and our judiciary is unacceptable, and it is dangerous. Look, his personal vendetta against the courts is not something that Ontarians share. We are focused right now on an existential threat to our province, to our country, to our economy. And I want to be very clear to everyone out there. We are not going to be the 51st state, and we are not going to import American-style judicial system or courts into Ontario or into Canada. We will stand up against that 100%.
People need to have confidence in our judiciary system. They need to know that their judges are fair, that they're independent, that they're qualified, and that they've been selected because of their merit. And I think this is very different than the system that is used in the United States, obviously, when they have elected judges. We here in Canada believe judges should be independent and selected for their merit. Here, judges can't be bought. So I think that distinguishes us, and I'm very concerned about the Premier not recognizing this in his comments this morning.
And CB24's Jamie Goodfrein joins us with the latest reaction to the Premier's bail reform plan. Jamie.
Yeah, well, with more reaction, we want to bring in a criminal defense lawyer, Joseph Neuberger. It's always great to chat with you. And you and I have spoken for a couple of years about bail reform. Obviously, no shortage of opinions on this. But from a legal perspective, I mean, we heard the Premier. He says the system is broken. This is a sentiment that is echoed by a lot of police associations and premiers across the country. Is the system broken? What's your take?
No, the system's not broken. It works well, and everybody should have confidence in our judicial system and the criminal justice system. We have an excellent system across Canada. Also, I just want to say that in the United States, state judges are generally elected, but not federally appointed judges. And so many serious offenses in the United States come before federally appointed judges. So we would not want to import a style of appointing judges or meaning the politicization of it or electing them in Canada. We have a very good system. There needs to be some tweaks done, but we have a very good system.
Respectfully, I mean, you know the law a lot better than I do, Joseph, but a lot of people will disagree when you hear from the Ontario Police Association, who we just had on our show about an hour ago. He says that the current system fails to prioritize safety of victims and police officers. And when you have repeat violent offenders who, just like what the Premier said, breaking into people's homes, terrorizing them with firearms, and then they're let out on bail repeatedly. How is that? How do you make the case that there's not major problems here?
Well, again, we have an extremely high rate of incarceration in Ontario, and per capita, our rate of offenses are lower than the United States. So the reason I say that is the United States uses a much harsher type of system than we do, and yet that doesn't seem to have an impact. With respect to bail, he keeps saying judges, okay? Judges come into a bail generally on a review, but the majority of the cases come before justices of the peace who are appointed through Ontario. And some of the measures I saw that Premier Ford wants to implement are actually more targeted and more measured approaches, some of which you and I have spoken about now for 2 years. A dedicated team of Crown attorneys who could work with the Guns and Gangs unit specifically for repeat and serious violent offenses. So that would be good. And that's an investment in the system, which we've spoken about. Investing in the police so that they have funds for the units to follow up on bail checks, which they have not been because they are stretched across many issues. And then, stricter terms for release for anybody who comes before the court with a very serious violent crime makes good sense. The tools are there. So these are measured, targeted approaches, but we have to remember they must be charter compliant as well with the constitutional right to have a reasonable bail. But I think these approaches will make sense.
A part of what we've heard from the law enforcement community is that the catch and release system legislation that was implemented by the Justin Trudeau government is not working. And in fact, that it's putting police officers' lives at risk, especially when they're attempting to apprehend someone or maybe pull someone over that's breached their bail conditions. And we saw a situation like that with OPP officer Greg Pershala. What's your response to law enforcement who do say that the system is broken and that we need major reforms to make sure that these violent offenders stay behind bars?
Well, I have discussions with police officers all the time, and I think many of them would agree with me. There are a number of instances where we have people out committing repeat offenses and they're out on bail. But generally, again, if you're arrested and it's a serious offense or a gun offense, your bail hearing isn't going to be within a couple hours. That just doesn't happen. It's going to be maybe the next day or several days later because you actually have to schedule a special date for them. And then you will have a dedicated Crown attorney assigned. So this catch and release term is more from the United States than Canada, who has, in some respects, a more liberal type of approach to bail. So there are justices of the peace who may be misinterpreting some of the law to some extent. The bail terms and the law that's taken into consideration on bail hearings is that from the courts. So it's from the Ontario Court of Appeal, Supreme Court of Canada, not necessarily the legislation. So again, I think minor tweaks need to be put into place. The bail hearings have to be run in a specific way. The system needs to be invested in because Crown attorneys need the support and time to dedicate themselves to these bail hearings. That's a particular issue. And funding for police, like I said, is a particular issue. And I think they would all agree with this.
Joseph Neuberger, always appreciate your time and perspective. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Take care.
And furthermore, Lena, Premier Ford goes on to say that the most meaningful bail reforms must come from the federal government. He said that he did speak with Prime Minister Mark Carney after the election on Tuesday, and he said that he's confident, hopefully, that the new Prime Minister, unlike the previous Prime Minister who didn't want to do anything, he has confidence that he believes that Mark Carney has the focus of keeping communities safe. Back to you.
All right, Jamie, thanks so much for this.